My vlog was slightly spoilery, so the goal for this video is to not be spoilery at all. I'm Quinn Moone, I write queer fairy tales. Today I will be talking about the Greenhollow duology. Again, I actually don't have either book because I returned it to my library and my book still hasn't arrived. Totally fine. I have other books to be reading anyways, and I would be too tempted to just sit and annotate it. So let's talk about the duology. First, Silver in the Wood. Silver in the Wood follows the story of young, beautiful Henry Silver as he tracks down the story of the wild man of the Greenhollow Wood, which is the wood that is on his expansive estate, which he has only recently acquired. In the beginning, we meet Henry Silver as he's walking through the forest during a rainstorm, which is not advised. And we quickly realize that his small aristocratic frame is just not up to task. Later on, we find out that he also doesn't like the practical applications of being a folklorist, unlike his monster hunting mother, who is a force of nature and not one to take lightly. So Henry Silver stumbles upon a cottage in the middle of the wood. His wood technically, but really it belongs to the wild man, aka Tobias Finch. Tobias is currently the keeper of the wood and all of the fairy tale creatures within the wood. He has a cat named Pearl and his best friend, sort of a friend, more like a magical creature that just doesn't leave him alone, Bramble the Dryad. And Bramble is very protective of Tobias. She's very protective of the wood. She will go out of her way to protect Tobias. She is very fond of him. And although the Dryad will never understand love the way a human does, I believe that Bramble, in as much capacity as she can, does love Tobias. So Tobias is doing his wild man thing when Henry Silver stumbles into his cottage soaking wet, and after some very bad flirtations and Tobias being like, all right, keep your shirt on, sir. Just leave in the morning. He gets back to his wood where the relationship between Tobias and Henry Silver actually flourishes. This book is queer and it has queer elements, but it's very friends first. Even though Henry Silver was immediately taken with Tobias, it's not insta-love. They develop a mutual respect for each other. Sort of a mutual respect, as much respect as Henry Silver can inspire, because Bramble's kind of like, what's that kid doing here? But their relationship is very sweet, endearing, despite Bramble being like, you can definitely do better, Tobias. Tobias becomes very protective of Henry Silver. As everything in the world is, there are good, evil, and neutral. Bramble is probably a chaotic neutral. She doesn't quite like anybody, maybe except Pearl, the cat. But she doesn't dislike anybody enough to try to do harm, unless they're trying to harm Tobias, then it's no bueno. But there are forces in the wood that Tobias is very aware of, and he's very keen to protect Henry Silver from. Just because he doesn't want to immediately take this strapping young lad to bed doesn't mean he doesn't care about him. And he's very protective of a new character that comes on the scene called the Lord of Summer. And the Lord of Summer is a mischievous, just troublemaker that Tobias has taken upon as his burden to protect the villagers. And we realize that there is a reason that Tobias believes this is his burden to bear, and that he has fulfilled this task for hundreds of years. Henry Silver, unfortunately, is not one to be told, stay away from the dashing Lord of Summer, and off he goes to serve himself up on a silver platter, which obviously does not go well. Decisions must be made, sacrifices are made, histories are confronted, and the culmination of the book was actually very satisfying. And while trouble haunts you at every turn, it is the sacrifices that Tobias Finch is willing to make to save Henry Silver. The resilience that his mother shows in the face of this tragedy with her son. Adela Silver, Henry's mother, is a force of nature. And she will not let anybody, including Bramble, which I thought was going to end up violent, but Tobias told Bramble to stand down. She was not about to let some mythical creature take her son without a fight. And it was very beautiful to see. And it was beautiful to see that the ending and the resolution wasn't clean, it wasn't perfect, it was messy. It was the only natural conclusion when you're dealing with magic. Magic doesn't follow our very human categorizations and ideals. Magic has its own rules and its own way of functioning, and the ending and the culmination of this book is an example of an ending where magic is real. I think that's all I have to say. My vlog was way more gushy, but that's okay. That's what my vlogs are for. I realize I need a space to just prattle on before I can do something a little more contained. Moving on to Drowned Country, which is the second one. I really liked this book. So, according to the blurb, I'm going to read the blurb. I'm going to read the blurb to make sure I don't spoil nothing. Hold up. Okay. Even the wild man of Greenhollow can't ignore a summons from his mother, when that mother is the indomitable Adela Silver, practical folklorist. Yeah, let's connect the dots. Adela Silver is the mother of the wild man of Greenhollow. Henry Silver is the new wild man of Greenhollow. Says so in the blurb. Let's move on. In Drowned Country, we follow Henry Silver as the very incompetent wild man of Greenhollow. Oh my gosh. So at the end of the first book, stuff goes down. Tobias Finch is now just another man, just a normal human, and he is out being a productive member of society. Henry Silver, on the other hand, is not productive in any capacity, and it's getting on Bramble's nerves. And it is the best to see just her disappointment in Silver. And Silver knows that he's a disappointment. He's Tobias is nothing short of godly to Bramble, and now she's stuck with me. So she's very much man, what a downgrade. The book opens with Henry Silver slightly letting himself go. He did not take the breakup well. Shame. And his mother asks for help because there is a vampire on the loose that likes beautiful young men. And his mother is I know a beautiful young man that's probably up to no good. Can confirm Henry Silver was up to nothing good. And so Adela Silver shows up only to see just how far Silver has let himself go. She's very much this is what we got to work with. You're pretty enough, I suppose. And she's very sarcastic about it too. Hopefully the vampire will bite. I don't know if he will at this point. Silver, who's still not over his breakup with Tobias, because he's young. He's in his 20s. He's, strong-armed into going because he's fine, I'll only go because I'm useful. And Adela Silver is just calm down, don't get ahead of yourself. We just need you to show up and not break anything. As the book progresses, it is less plot-driven and more about solving the mystery, not of the vampire, which, yeah, there's a tangible outcome to that, but the mystery of the wood itself. This book focuses on more of the lore around the wood and its historical reach, the questions that were posed in the first book. What happens to the magic when the gods are no longer followed? Does the wood still exist in a place that it no longer is, but it was? The remnants of magic are being searched for in this book, more so than the old vampire that was keeping up in the spooky castle. And I really enjoyed was it the most exceptionally well executed for what I believe the book was trying to accomplish? I think it did drag a little bit, and I feel we didn't need to. We need a character that I love her contribution. She is a mini Adela Silver. I don't know if we needed the vampire. I was a little random. I think that the search for fairy was could have been refined a little bit more. I loved what I saw with Tobias. I loved what I saw with Silver. I loved what I saw with the magic. It could have been done a little better, but I still thoroughly enjoyed it, simply because we get answers to the history of the wood. We eventually do find out what happens when nobody follows the gods anymore. We find out what happens to magic. We find out what happens to the wood. And we learn so much about it. It's this book was meant to not only have Henry Silver pining after Tobias, which was really cute. Slightly annoying sometimes. Even to Tobias, he's like, can we be professional here? Like, we're here to do a job. Quit what you're doing, quit your mess. Let's move on. But also to answer the questions of what is the wood? Outside of, you know, the inevitable, hopefully it's inevitable. If not, it's going to be a spoiler. The inevitable happily ever after. I thought it was okay, I was listening to this on the plane. I was listening to the audiobook on the plane on my way back from my trip when the secret of the wood is revealed, when the ending happens. And if you've read it, you know what I mean. I was listening to it and I'm like, and it was like the greatest revelation. I don't know why I didn't see it coming. It might just have been me. I might have been too focused on Silver being a bad flirt with Tobias. But it was such a huge reveal to me. I don't know. It really must have just been me. I guess a lot of people probably saw it coming. I loved it. I loved how it ended. I loved the questions. I loved the answers that weren't given. It was so fun. So while the second book kind of dragged and meandered a little bit, and I'm like, oh, what are we doing here? Even though it was apparently longer than Silver in the Wood, I enjoyed that it took the time to wrap up the lore of the wood, which is kind of where I was most curious. Yeah, vampires are cool and all that, but I wanted to know about what happens to the old magic. I wanted to know about what happens when the gods are no longer there. Like, it was lovely and sweet. I really enjoyed it. That's what we're working with, and those are my thoughts. I think I just knocked it all out. Honestly, I think my favorite part of the first book was learning about Tobias's past and seeing him confront it. It was very sad. It was very hard. But Tobias was one of my favorite characters in the first book. In the second book, outside of Bramble's just sassiness, I really loved, like, Henry Silver grows up. He grows throughout the book. He realizes, like, I was being a little selfish turd. And he acknowledges and he realizes it. I love Tobias, you know, being Tobias, since he is a very consistent character. I will say, the voices of these characters are very consistent. There is no, like, bizarre, weird deviation. So I really appreciate that in the continuity of both books. But in the second book, what I loved was the search for the old magic. And the new character, gosh, what is her name? I actually don't remember. Oh, and they don't even have her name on the thing. Great. The new character that's introduced, that's like a mini Adela Silver. I liked her, and I liked how brash she was. I wish that the search for Fairy was a little more just refined, because that was my favorite part. I loved seeing the old magic. I loved having the wood present in all things. And I loved when Silver dabbled in magic that was very old magic. And Tobias was like, how dare you touch that? You don't touch it. And it shows the power of the wood and the corruption at stake if someone that isn't strong, if someone that isn't magical starts trying to do magic that they have no business touching. So that was my favorite part. I love the ending. I loved all of that. But I loved the answers and the questions that we still had at the end of the second book. So it was a very fun little duology. I thought it would be fun. I thought I would enjoy it. I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would, that's for sure. The writing was very fun. How many times have I said fun in this video? Way too many. I had a lot of fun with it because the book also knew that it had 100 pages to work with, and it didn't take itself too seriously. The book had a story to tell, and it told the story, but it had fun with it. And I was able to enjoy it as a reader. I was able to cringe, to laugh, to slightly cry a little bit, to just be like, oh, that's so sad. So it was a really fun read, and I'm buying the 2 books. I just have to receive them, and then I'm going to annotate them because of just the very wonderful treatment of magic. It's simple, it's YA, but the questions are still pretty universal for magic systems, for magic worlds. What happens to the old magic? And it was great. It also wasn't like bash you over the head like queer, like gayness everywhere. That's not the case either. It was kind of like just, yeah, that's also a thing there, but really we're focused on the magic. And I love that. It was a lot of fun. My vlog is way more gushy than this, thankfully. I was able to keep this a little more contained. Let me know if you read the duology and what you thought, because I think that there was a lot of sequels are always so difficult. The second book definitely is a hit or miss for a lot of people, based on what I'm seeing and based on the reviews that I saw. I can see why it was a hit or miss. I still really enjoyed it, but I'm willing to look past the very obvious, like, there's not a whole lot of real plot. It's a lot of pining. It's like, well, yes, but there's also what I believe the intent of the second book is, which is to answer the question of what the wood is. So what were your expectations for both books? Were they met? Were they not? Did you have fun with it? I had fun with it. I love that little book. Like, those two books were just such a little treasure. Like, I love it. So I'm gonna get them. Oh my God, I hope they're the same size. I will be so upset if one book varies different sizes. Okay, I will report back if the two books are not the same size. I will be so upset. Hopefully publishers are good and they're like at least trying to pair the duology, but that's it. I'm rambling. I had so much fun with this little duology. Let me know what you thought. I would love to talk about it. And who was your favorite character and what did you think of Bramble? Bramble was so great. Y'all, if you just want to have like a character by character breakdown with me, please talk to me about your favorite characters, your favorite moments. I will have the book soon so I can like, hey, go to page XYZ. This is my favorite. I'll highlight it. Just talk to me about this like adorable little duology. That's it for this video. Catch you next time. Bye!